I've scoured the film, and now it's time to go upon further review and take a deeper look into what the 49ers did against the Patriots. Were there some things that stood out in the positive? Yes. Were there things that stood out in the negative? Yes. There's going to be all those coaching points and more in this episode of 49ers Cutback.
From the alley-oops at Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Love upon further review because it gave me a chance to go through the film, do what I used to do when I coached, break it down and just find some of the nuanced things or even some of the maybe the conversations about players that people just aren't having right now. And it gives you a good idea of what's happening on the field every single play. Of course, I do my full all 22 film breakdowns over on Patreon. In the first half, offense and defense are available over there right now. Of course, the second half, they'll be coming up pretty soon. But I've made sure I've went through and watched so I can have a detailed conversation about some of the things I saw on film and some of the things you just don't catch when you're watching the TV copy. Some things are just different. And so it's always nice to get a different view, a different viewpoint. And the all 22 film gives you the ability to see everyone. And that changes some things. For the 49ers, it changed a little bit, but it gave me an appreciation for several players. It gave me appreciation for some of the coaches. And really, I was just excited about this team moving forward. Now, they're not a finished product by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a far cry from what we saw the week before against the Rams, where the wheels kind of fell off. And we've seen some nice adjustments that I think are going to help the 49ers moving forward, whether that is certain personnel and the way they're used, or also just the attention to detail and how the 49ers and Nick Sorensen are playing coverages or bringing blitzes. So overall, it's going to be a full breakdown. I got to be honest, when I come up with coaching points, I see some of the negative as well. And there were a couple of players in this game that I was very surprised by how much they struggled in certain situations. And we're going to get into those points as well. It's not meant to be negative. It's just meant for a coaching point, things that need to be worked on. And of course, all players are capable of getting better. Please like and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, I really appreciate it. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe, please give it a 5-star rating. If you're going to bet with Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Bet Online is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. You think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. So this is always a fun one because you get to get more into it. And one thing I wanted to evaluate in this game, besides players, was what was going on with the 49ers defense. Because the Patriots are not known for their offensive weapons or putting up points. In fact, they scored their league average this year, or their total number that they've been scoring this year, 13 points. So when you're scoring 13 points and the 49ers give up 13 points, it doesn't necessarily mean you had a really good defensive performance. But I wanted to crack the film and really see if they did have a good defensive performance. And I felt walking away from this one that Coach Nick Sorensen did a very good job and schemed the heck out of it. I thought they were really on point. They came in with a detailed plan. They knew when the Patriots were going to do certain things, they wanted to respond certain ways. I only saw one time where the 49ers had a personnel grouping from the Patriots that they weren't exactly ready to put the right personnel on the field early on in this game. It was the second play of the game. But after that, they definitely fixed it. And so that type of thing really Goes to show how much Coach Nick Sorensen is getting on top of things and making sure he puts his players in good situations to be successful. Now, some of the things that I picked up on that I really enjoyed about the San Francisco 49ers defense in this matchup was going 5 defensive linemen against the 12 personnel sets that the Patriots were going to be putting out there. Because we knew coming into this game, I think everyone knew, it's one of those things that you got to be crazy to not know that they were going to run 12 personnel in this game. The way that the Rams and Vikings had so much success loading up with heavy sets, getting Demetrius Flanagan fouls and that base 4-3 defense on the field, and then taking advantage of them in the run game. But also, when you have 2 talented tight ends like the Patriots do with Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper, also being able to find matchups in the passing game where your tight ends line up against those linebackers. So you've got to be able to step up and have a good plan, and the 49ers did. What did they do? First off, they were going to be hyper aggressive. They were going to take away the Patriots' running game. If Ramondre Stevenson couldn't get going, if Antonio Gibson couldn't get going, the 49ers could sit back in a too high safety look and take away Jacoby Brissett and the Patriots' passing game, which isn't that great. They were averaging just 102 yards per game through the air. So taking away the run game is the key element, and he goes with 5 defensive linemen up front, which adding the extra guy means you pull off a linebacker or a skilled guy. But I thought it was a great play in this game. Jordan Elliott playing over the nose did a really good job, and the 49ers just were able to take away gaps, take away opportunities to run the football, and just fill their gaps. Thought it was a great job by him showing those looks. And we had seen Steve Wilkes run those a little bit last year. It had a mixed bag. Sometimes it was successful, sometimes it wasn't. But in this game, it was hyper successful for the San Francisco 49ers. He mixed in more blitzes than any other game this season. So each of the first 3 games, 7 blitzes per game. In this game, he blitzed 30% of the time. Tremendous. You're talking 64 defensive snaps, and he blitzed 30% of the time. And they weren't all just pass blitzes. They weren't all blitzes to put pressure on the quarterback, but he also run blitzed to fill gaps and fill holes. He brought Devondre Campbell. He brought Jair Brown. He brought Fred Warner. There was one time he had 5 defensive linemen in there and then brought Fred as a 6th man to plug all the gaps. And the 49ers got a big stop. So it was a detail-oriented and a really good scheme effort by Sorensen. He also called the right coverages for the most part. It wasn't perfect. I don't want anyone to think it was. But for the most part, called the right coverages at the right time for what the Patriots were going to run. There's only a few times that I said, hey, that was a wrong coverage at the wrong time. Give credit to the Patriots. Patriots called the play to beat that coverage. But I thought overall the use of the blitz, mixing that in, bringing 5 guys on occasion, bringing 6 guys on occasion, I think was really huge for this football team. I thought they did a good job stifling a Patriots run game that had been pretty good this season. There was one thing they did well. It was running the football, averaging 144 yards per game on the ground coming into Sunday's matchup with the 49ers. 49ers hold them to 73 yards in that game. Ramondre Stevenson didn't even get over 50. The 49ers did a really good job, and a lot of it starts with Coach Nick Sorensen's ability to get the 49ers in the right looks. He disguised his looks in coverage well. One play, just for an example, he had Malik Mustafa look like he was playing a deep half, so you had 2 high safety look, and you seen Jacoby Brissett check into a run play, and then right pre-snap, it was a good timing by Malik Mustafa. He came into the box, and the 49ers were able to get a stop in the run game because of it. So that's one of those times where you got a look that they thought they liked. It was second down. He ran a lot of 2 high safety looks in second down situations. And then this time they didn't run it, and he came down and they got a stop. And that's how you get yourself into 3rd and long situations and help yourself get off the field. 49ers much better on 3rd down this week. Patriots go 5 of 16, and 2 of those 3rd down conversions came in the first half. 49ers defense was on point compared to what we had seen so far this season. And a lot of that has to go with Nick Sorensen and how he put together the plan. But you also have to have good play from your players, and I thought they did a really good job in this game as well. The defense looked well married together. That means the front of your defense the front 7 looked married to the back end. When defensive line and coverage married together, you get good defensive play. And I thought they did a good job in this one. And then I got to give him kudos for getting young players some key reps. Renardo Green and Malik Mustafa. Mustafa played, this game. He started. He did a really good job. He had some mistakes. We'll talk about him a little bit more in a second. But also, Renardo Green getting out there for 23 snaps and doing a really good job. Was targeted one time, did not give up a catch in his 17 pass coverage reps, which is great news for the 49ers. And, we brought up this before. It's not like the wide receivers for the Patriots are really, really good. You got KJ Osborne, Demario Douglas. These guys, Tyquan Thornton, they weren't really going to push the 49ers too much. But I thought Nick Sorensen did a great job in this game. And I think it's something to build on moving forward. This defense could take the next step. And in comes a Arizona Cardinals team that can spread you out. They could use James Conner to run the football and pound the football on you. So attention to detail is going to be very important again as you're looking to go against a very good Arizona football team. So let's talk about Malik Collins and Jordan Elliott. And you probably walked out of that game thinking Malik Collins is an absolute beast, and you would be 100% right. Malik Collins did such a good job in this football game, finding opportunities to get into the backfield with penetration. There's one play that I broke down on film where he uses Reggie White's hump move, and he gets the body weight of the offensive lineman going one way because he uses a jab step inside, and then takes his left arm and hits the shoulder, gets him just at the perfect timing when he's off balance, and is able to get around him. It is just a phenomenal play by Malik Collins. And you just see that ability to consistently get in on pass rush downs. And Malik Collins is third in the NFL right now with a 17.9 pressure rate. And it was on display in this football game. He wins from the inside, and he does a very good job at it. And he's been really good. Now, Jordan Elliott did not play the second half because of injury. He got some friendly fire from Malik Collins. Malik Collins was rushing the passer, ended up coming in and hitting his leg, and it ended up causing a little bit of an issue for him. But he played really well, especially in 5 defensive lineman sets when he came in. He would play right over the center, and he would bring consistent pressure by getting a push on the interior offensive line. And that is really good when playing against the run, being able to occupy blockers, which he does a very good job at. I saw him getting skinny. This was the best performance I saw from Jordan Elliott against double teams. There wasn't a whole lot of them, but when he got him, he played well. But being able to collapse the pocket on the inside for a quarterback is huge. So what I'm talking about is you get that pass rush coming from the outside, Bosa and Floyd. You need to have an internal push as well from that defensive line. When that happens, the pocket will actually collapse on top of the quarterback. That is going to be key as you're playing these more athletic quarterbacks that you're going to play moving forward. Guys like Kyler Murray, Geno Smith, Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott. Those are your next 4 quarterbacks you're going to be facing. Being able to collapse a pocket's important. Getting a defensive push from the inside is important. And Jordan Elliott and Malik Collins do a very good job with that. Collins is such a great penetrator with his speed and athleticism, being able to get into the backfield. Jordan Elliott, not really predicated on speed and athleticism, has enough, but has a really good bull rush and a lot of force and a lot of ability to push that pocket. I liked him on the inside. I like the 5 defensive lineman look when they ran it, especially in this one, and we'll see. I think that's tougher to run against some of these other teams you're going to be playing. Maybe certain looks you can run it. I don't think you can run it a lot against Arizona. They're going to spread you out. So it'll be a little bit of a different look. But when you get into short yardage situations, I like this look, and I like what those 2 guys the 49ers brought in. Collins, right, with a trade. Jordan Elliott as a free agent. They did a great job. Jordan Mason had such a good game, right? I mean, you look at the stats that Jordan Mason was able to put up in this game. He had 24 carries for 123 yards. And it was interesting. He had the touchdown. He kept saying, I didn't play a good game. And even in his presser, he was just, they were talking to him in the locker room, and he just didn't feel very good and comfortable with the game. And I kept wondering, why is that? Because I thought he did a pretty good job. I mean, you looked at the film and you watched the game live, and it's like, man, he's doing a good job. He had the 2 fumbles, right? He had 2 times he put the ball on the ground, and I was kind of chalking it up to that's what he was talking about. Those were a couple of situations. He put the ball on the ground. He felt like he let the offense down. But after watching the film, I think there was a little bit more than that. I actually found a couple of occasions where I felt like he missed big time plays. And so when he told Kyle Shanahan he left some out there, he wasn't lying. There was 2 occasions that he could have had either an explosive or a touchdown, and he was a little bit undecisive. And that's not something I've seen from Jordan Mason too much this season. But just to give you an idea of what I saw on film, there's one play where they have a inside zone and he can run just straight up the field, and it is wide open. The 49ers have it blocked perfectly. If he hits the gas and he goes right where he's supposed to go, he makes one cut and he's into the end zone for a touchdown. They were inside the red zone. Instead, he kind of jab steps to the outside, and there's no real reason why. He kind of stutter steps, jabs to the outside, and then goes up the hole. By slowing himself down, he allowed a backside linebacker to be able to get there in time and make the play. Or actually, I think it was a guy coming off Colt McKivit's block. And a lot of people will visualize that and say, hey, Colt McKivitz, you lost your block. But the timing of it would have been Jordan Mason in the end zone if he wouldn't have hesitated. So, yeah, you could say, hey, Colt McKivitz, we need you to hold that block a half a second later. Or you can also look at that Jordan Mason. If you would have not lost that half a second with the jab steps, you would have been in the end zone for a touchdown. So both guys, got something to work on there. But it was something interesting that I saw from Jordan Mason. There was another play. It was an outside zone to the right side. If he presses it all the way like he's supposed to, he's going to keep running, and he might even get to the end zone. You can even see him after the play shaking his head because he kind of jab stepped again and then found the hole, which he did a great job and got a great run on the play, probably like 15 to 18 yards on the outside. The problem was that allowed a guy to be able to get there and cut him off. And so they got an angle on him because he hesitated a little bit. That's the difference between 18 and a touchdown, right? And so it wasn't bad things from Jordan Mason, just little things that I noticed that I hadn't always seen before. A little more indecisive than I had remembered him being on the previous films that we've watched. There was always the occasional here and there. Maybe he missed a hole, right? It happens to all running backs, no big deal. But I just thought that was interesting and something I want to see, if he can get better at. But it was a great game for Jordan Mason. No one would complain about it. It's just when you're evaluating film, you kind of are a little bit picky and noticing things and noticing little timing mechanisms and why a play might not have worked out as good as you thought it was going to because of something with this. In this case, it came down to a running back being a little less decisive than you would want. Now let's talk about Aaron Banks. And I did not realize this from watching the game live. I don't always watch the offensive line. Sometimes I watch O-line. I try to vary it up. But one thing I noticed on film is Aaron Banks was struggling when it came to pass protection. He looked off balance. He looked like he was reaching. He wasn't staying underneath himself. It didn't look really good from Aaron Banks. Aaron Banks almost looks like a guy that's struggling to move sometimes. His feet look like they're stuck in the mud, and he's kind of reaching and overextending himself instead of staying back. And he was dealing with some pretty good pass rush, lateral quickness. And we know that that's not something that he does extremely well. But I've kind of noticed him struggling a little bit when it came to run blocking and being able to pick up linebackers at the second level, which they're hyper athletic, right? So we're having an athleticism issue. And it's not like I think Aaron Banks is bad. I still think he's very capable. I think last year what we saw at the beginning of the season was kind of the ceiling for Aaron Banks, where you've seen a player that was Pro Bowl caliber that could really play well in the run game and the pass game. And I don't think we've seen him get back there. I don't know what his body's like. I don't know how healthy he is. But I did notice that he's definitely struggling a little bit when it comes to pass protection. And that's something the 49ers got to make sure they fix. Banks cannot be struggling. They're going to bring pressure to him. They're going to use guys with good lateral quickness to try to take advantage of him. And the 49ers, I've never thought about this until really right now. If this continues for Aaron Banks and he doesn't get better over the next few weeks, it might be time to start rotating Spencer Burford in there at left guard a little bit. Burford hasn't played a lot this season, but when he has, he's looked good. And he is definitely a lot more athletic than Aaron Banks. Don't get me wrong. Banks is healthy. When Banks is healthy, he's one of the better players. When Banks is feeling good, he's able to make those plays. He's capable. Right now, we're just not seeing it at the highest of levels that I think the 49ers would really like to get from Banks. So I'm expecting Banks to turn this thing around. I'm really hoping that he's able to stay back and he's able to make the plays that he needs to make in the football games moving forward. But the 49ers might think about Burford at some point. But, just looking a little bit too much unbalanced, which I was surprised to see because Banks is normally very good pass blocker. It does efficiently and it's usually pretty effective in the run game. But I think he hasn't put it all together yet this season. It's something that he needs to continue to work on. Devondre Campbell, and a lot of people have been talking about Devondre Campbell in a very negative light. I think Devondre Campbell isn't playing as bad as the stats would suggest. I saw some really good moments for him in the run game, and I know that he had 3 missed tackles, but one of those tackles I completely attribute to the defensive line, and you might ask me why. So everyone's got a job when it comes to defense, and the defensive linemen, they can't get moved out of their gap too much. They've got to keep their gap integrity, so that way the holes are small. When you get moved out of your hole, you create a big gap that makes it tougher for your second-level defenders and third-level defenders to come up and make the tackle. Because if you keep it tight, all of a sudden there's a tighter hole for you to be able to make the tackle. Not a lot of space for the running back to go. It's easier. What happens is sometimes those guys are getting moved. And one play in particular, Kevin Givens got moved way off. The hole was huge, and Ramondre Stevenson was able to go inside of Devondre Campbell because Campbell had to take outside leverage to force him inside because that's his job. He was unable to secure the tackle. He did slow him up, and Leonard Floyd made the tackle. But that is a missed tackle that is attributed to him when really he did his job, and if the gap wouldn't have gotten so big, would have made the tackle. This happened to Dre Greenlaw a lot last year, and that's why Dre Greenlaw's tackle miss rate went up, is because those were some tough situations. And so playing disciplined gap responsibility defense will help those things not happen. And so Campbell might miss tackles here and there, but we've got to remember there are some that are on him, and those are fine. Hold his feet to the fire on those. And then there's some that are made difficult by others not being able to execute their jobs good enough. And those ones, I don't really hang on him. I look at that and I say, hey, you know what? He did a pretty good job turning them in. Floyd was able to make the tackle. I would have loved to make the tackle, but I'd rather him turn that play in than allow Ramondre Stevenson to get outside because he tried to play it to make a tackle. Doing your job is more important. Now, you can't do other people's jobs for them. You're not Superman, which when Fred tries to be Superman sometimes. But I thought Campbell did a good job. I also pointed out some plays on film on my breakdowns where, once again, Devondre Campbell is covering a tight end. And most of the time, he's in zone. But he got locked up on Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry rounding out and up. Devondre Campbell's right in his hip pocket. It was great coverage. So I think that, some of the criticisms of him is a little bit overblown. I think he's being asked to do a lot right now in this defense, and him and Fred Warner have been answering the bell. Has it been as good as all-pro caliber Devondre Campbell in 2021? No. Is it a work in progress? Yes, and I'm hoping at some point he'll feel comfortable enough to make big plays. But all you have to do is look at play 1 of the game versus the Patriots, and the 49ers are coming in to stop the run, and he pulls the trigger. And you got to give credit to the defensive line. You had a 5-man line. They did a great job. They kept Fred Warner and Devondre Campbell unblocked. Devondre Campbell pulled the trigger, made a tackle in the backfield. Phenomenal play. But it starts with that D-line. That's why it's everyone doing their job. But Campbell did a good job on that. So does he got work to do? Absolutely. I think he's probably playing a little bit better than the stats say that he is, which is something we always got to remember. Now, the offensive line, I talked about Aaron Banks earlier. I thought overall the offensive line did a pretty good job. Trent Williams held up very well. If there was a toe, it did not show up on film. He was quick and fast, getting on the outside, getting to the second level on toss plays and plays to the outside. He looked fantastic as usual. Colt McKivitz had himself a good football game as well. 49ers gave him some help here and there with chips and with extra help. But overall, he held up, especially in obvious pass protection downs. He did an okay job. So, got to give him credit. It's not like the Patriots were devoid of defensive end pressure. They have guys that can create pressure, and he did a pretty good job holding up. And we know Dominic Pooney was number 1 when it came to PFF grades, and he did a really good job in this game. Gave up 0 pressures on pass sets, and that's what you need. Does he need to get better when it comes to run blocking? Yes. right? Aaron Banks and him right now are opposite of each other. Banks needs to get a lot better when it comes to pass protection, and he does pretty good in the run. And then with Pooney, it's the opposite. So the thing is, can they iron this thing out? I don't know. I'm thinking they can because you've got 5 guys that have worked together now for 4 games. Continuity is a real thing, and we'll see if it gets a little bit better, even though I have kind of put out there maybe Spencer Burford at some point on the left side. We'll see. Brock Purdy, fantastic in this game. You know, it's the last couple weeks you've kind of had opportunities to look at the film and you say, oh, he missed that one. Maybe he was a little late. He held on to the football. You know, I mean, there's some of those things when you're just being, critical of his play. You see some opportunities. But for the most part, I mean, Brock Purdy was on point in this football game. And really, he's been fantastic all year. Those are, right, just being critical because he plays really well. And you can't expect players to play 100, the best, 1,000% every single time, do everything perfect. Not the way it goes. But his reads were on point. His anticipation, his accuracy, really, really good. There was only a few missed opportunities that I saw in this game. I know in the first half, when we were breaking down the film, I'm going over it and I'm talking about how the safeties are squatting on those crossers over the middle, and they're eventually going to run verticals because, of course, we know in the game they did. And there's one that happens probably third drive of the game, and Brock Purdy can uncork an absolute touchdown to Deebo Samuel, a lot like the one he uncorked in the second half where he got it to Deebo on the vertical. And he didn't pull the trigger. He ended up getting completion to Kittle over the middle for like 11 yards, which is still a nice find for Brock, but he had a whole shot play to Deebo. Those are the kinds of things that he's missing every once in a while, but every quarterback in the NFL misses it. And I couldn't criticize him too much because he literally found a wide open George Kittle over the middle for a first down. You know, how are you hating on that? But he was willing and able to take those shots down the field. And you could see the Patriots. They were squatting on all those plays over the middle of the field, trying to muddy it up. And as soon as he started going vertical, they had to change up their defense some. And he proved he'll consistently throw that football down the field if you allow him to. So one of the things that Jimmy Garoppolo struggled with, that's a difference from him to Brock Purdy, was they could muddy up the middle and just really go from hash mark to hash mark and make it tough. Brock Purdy can win outside the numbers. He loves throwing out patterns, and he does a good job with those. And he's showing that he can win vertically down the field. Defenses are going to have to play him more straight up. And if they play him more straight up, now he's going to be able to go back to the middle of the field. He's going to have the whole field to be able to play with. It's huge for this 49ers offense. And it's all because of Brock Purdy's ability to go through his reads, his progressions, throw with anticipation, and with accuracy on every football that he throws. They're not all going to be perfect, but for the most part, he does a really good job of getting the ball into space to his playmakers. Fred Warner, so good. Just so good. You had the 4th and 1 stop. 49ers defense does a good job keeping bodies off of Fred, and he comes downhill. And there's one shot, I had froze it on the breakdown, and he's got his eyes looking over the shoulder of the offensive lineman right at Stevenson, and he comes through and he hits him in the hole. And we got penetration from Malik Collins, got to give him credit. So it made Stevenson go lateral first. So he's going lateral to the side. Then he tries to get vertical, and Fred just stops him right there. But when Fred Warner is clean and not getting an offensive lineman on him, he's almost impossible to prevent from making the tackle. And when he does get an offensive lineman on him, if it's delayed by even a half a second, he's going to be able to shed that block, get downhill, and make tackles. Sideline to sideline speed, the interception where he's showing a blitz. They're showing a double A blitz with him and Devondre Campbell, and then he backs off, gets depth, is able to pass off a receiver going left, still keep his eyes on Jacoby Brissett, and then jump up and make the interception. Phenomenal. And I got to give credit to a couple of guys on that return. Malik Mustafa lighting up an offensive lineman and creating an opportunity, flat back block. Fantastic given effort there. And then Jair Brown and Charvarius Ward running all the way down the field and knocking Jacoby Brissett into the end zone and allowing Fred Warner just enough space to get the touchdown. All guys playing together, but Fred is phenomenal. Just absolutely fantastic. And, just watching him on film, you just see this is the best defensive player in football, and it isn't close. He's doing everything at the highest of levels. De'Amar Lenore had another really good football game. The guy is playing with attitude, aggressiveness in the run game, tackling well on the outside, tight, sticky coverage, not giving up too much space. I mean, he's playing at a really high level right now. I'd be surprised if he wasn't at least a Pro Bowler this year, and could also be pushing. If he starts getting some turnovers, he can start pushing for an all-pro type season. Malik Mustafa, he has a lot of work to do. I think when it comes to tackling, sometimes he's coming in out of control. That was the thing I noticed the most about Malik. He's out of control. He's not breaking down. He needs to learn to play, with that frenzy, but a controlled frenzy. And I think that's something he'll learn as he gets used to the speed of the game and what's asked of him, and he'll be able to slow down his body, but not slow down his mind and aggressiveness. That's what we're looking for from Malik, but it takes reps. And I love that he got reps in this football game, and he was allowed to make mistakes. Making a little bit of mistakes in coverage, that's to be expected. Missing tackles in open space, that I was a little bit more critical of. He had the first third down the Patriots had. He had Stevenson dead to rights, so he plays his coverage perfectly. Stevens catches the ball as the outlet, and he's got flats. Here he comes up on Stevenson. All he has to do is get his body across to the outside leg of Stevenson. He's going to make the tackle in space. 49ers get a stop. They're off the field, 3 and out. Instead, he attacks the inside leg. Improper technique. Stevenson jukes him, goes outside, and gets the first down. And why is it improper to go inside? All your help, number one, is inside. So you want to make sure if Stevenson jukes you, he goes back in. That's number one. Number two, it also will get your whole entire body across his legs to help with the tackle. If you attack the inside, he's got half of his body outside, and with a big running back like that, that's going to be hard to tackle. So you get your helmet across, you want to put it on his outside leg, and you want to make that tackle wrap up. And I think that that's something Malik Mustafa can get better at. We've seen him miss a few tackles. So let's harness that frenzy, and then I think he'll be okay. But I love him for the future. Sky's the limit for Malik Mustafa. The aggressiveness, the intelligence, it's there. It's just right now he's a little uncontrolled. And I think that he'll work on that, and he'll get a little bit better. And then something I noticed on film, and I had to write it down, was the 49ers are protecting DFF a little bit when it comes to run defense, which I love. So for those of you who know how linebacker play works, you got your Mike linebacker, which is Fred. He plays the middle. And then your Sam linebacker will play the strong side of the formation. Sam linebacker is supposed to be Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles. He comes off the field in nickel packages, sub packages. Your Will stays on. Will is your weak side linebacker. Well, 49ers right now are playing Flannigan-Fowles in their base 4-3. They're playing him at will linebacker. They're playing him out, on the weak side. And they're playing Sam backer as Devondre Campbell. And Campbell's holding up in the run game. And they're protecting Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles, where now he has the cutback lane. It doesn't always work that way, right? They can still run weak side, run at him. But for the most part, they're trying to help. And I didn't think Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles played terrible in this game. I thought he had moments where he held up and was able to make some plays for this 49ers defense. I don't think it's been consistent yet. But we'll see. And the 49ers went out and signed Jalen Graham off the Washington Commanders practice squad. So Jalen Graham is going to be a part of the 49ers 53-man roster for the short term. We'll see what that means for Fred and others. They did have a spot available in the linebacker room with Curtis Robinson being put on IR. So maybe that is the corresponding move for the 49ers. But yeah, 49ers, look really good on film. You had the key things you got to work on, but they definitely have building blocks to go. I'll say this about Kyle Shanahan. 2 weeks in a row, game plan has been fantastic. Adjustments during the game, so good. He adjusted some run blocking by the time they got to the third series. Oh, I see how they're playing me. We're going to adjust it. Went from Kittle trying to kick out the defensive end, that outside linebacker, to hooking him and getting to the outside. Quick, subtle adjustments just like that. That's good scheme. That's good preparation. Of course, it's got to be executed by the players, which they did, and Kittle and others are absolutely phenomenal, right? But overall, I thought Shanahan did a good job as well in this football game. All we need now, we have two coordinators doing a really good job. Brian Schneider, let's see it, man. Live up to their expectations for you and step up. But overall, it was a good win for the 49ers. It was fun film to break down. And, of course, we got Arizona Cardinals coming up. So we'll be getting into the Arizona Cardinals and what the 49ers need to do to beat them. We'll do a first look and the tail of the tape. Those will be coming up this week including the game preview show. I hope you guys will all join me for that. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Really appreciate it. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe, please give it a 5-star rating. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.